But we live in a world of so many different distractions. We live in a world where we've never been more busy, cluttered, and distracted, where it's often easier to spend our time in the non-important and non-urgent space, filling time rather than investing time. This has become an epidemic within teams and organizations. We've bought into this myth that busyness equates to effectiveness. If I just fill up my time running around doing a bunch of tasks, that somehow that equates and means I'm good at what I do. But the reality is we're just filling time rather than investing in the highest priorities.
Welcome back to The Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced. The best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world.
Hey everyone, it's Jason, and welcome back to the Thermostat Podcast. Wherever you are in the world or however you're coming to this podcast, thank you for making time. And as always, my hope is that the content engages your mind and your heart and also helps you to navigate your way through all the changes, all the uncertainty, all the things that we are experiencing in your life, in your work, your career, with your team and organization that you serve. So this is a place and a space for you to step back, for you to take a deep breath, for you to think and reflect. And this is a place that's going to fuel you, hopefully, with positive content, positive thoughts, and things, encouragement that engages your mind and your heart. I'm more convinced than ever that authentic leadership and creating compelling cultures in the world are needed more than ever inside of our teams, our organizations, our families, communities, all of that, that creating culture that people want to be a part of and that's bigger than us has never been more important in the world. So thanks to everybody out there who is listening, those of you that subscribe, those of you that rate it 5 stars, of course, thank you for that, and leave a positive review. All of those things actually help with the algorithms of how all this works to help it amplify further into the world. So anyone who takes the time to rate and review the podcast, I'm very grateful for, because that helps it spread and reach more and more people in the world and hopefully make a greater impact with people. Today, I want to talk about how we spend, use, manage, invest our time. Because in the world that we live in today, we've never been, as humans, more busy, cluttered, distracted, and certainly in the last year, isolated and socially distanced and quarantined and spread out and disconnected from so many different things that we've been distracted, and there's been so much noise and a lot of negativity in the world that how we think about our time matters. And managing time and investing time are two different approaches. Managing time and investing time are two totally different approaches. Rather than just managing time, I choose, and I believe, I've tried to do this the best for my own personal life, but also for my business and with the relationships in my life. I choose and believe that the most effective in the world, and this isn't, again, just from my experience, although I try to live by all the stuff that I talk about too, but by study and research and watching the most effective people across industries in whatever it is their discipline is, the most effective in the world, no matter what your mission is, they think about investing their time rather than just managing their time. All of us have daily schedules. All of us have commitments. All of us have people that are asking for our time, wanting our time, or things that are trying to then steal our time. And it's not about just managing our calendars, managing our lists. Investing time is about engaging our mind and heart in the most important elements in life and work now, in order that invests in what it is we're trying to create into the future. So investing time is thinking about what is that future that I'm trying to create, and then making sure that how I am allotting my time, not just managing the schedule that reactionary comes my way, but managing my time and blocking time to make sure that I'm investing my time in my highest priorities and in that future that I'm trying to create. But we live in a world of so many different distractions. You've heard me talk about this many different times in the past. We live in a world where we've never been more busy, cluttered, and distracted, where it's often easier to spend our time in the non-important and non-urgent space, filling time rather than investing time. Filling time rather than investing time. And as you've heard me talk about in the past, that sometimes, and in fact, this has become an epidemic within teams and organizations, is we think we've bought into this myth that busyness equates to effectiveness. If I just fill up my time running around doing a bunch of tasks, that somehow that equates and means I'm good at what I do. But the reality is we're just filling time rather than investing in the highest priorities. Everybody by now has probably seen that image of the 4 quadrants. 4 quadrants. If imagine this: that there's 4 quadrants of the way that we generally manage and invest our time. And although sometimes it's just reactionary, where we're not really managing it, and we're certainly not investing it. We're just kind of filling time. But the 4 quadrants are based on importance and urgency. There's a quadrant that says of tasks and priorities and things that come at us every single day that are urgent, fires that we need to put out. They might seem urgent, but they're not important. Somebody needs our attention, needs something, and it seems urgent, but in the big scheme of things and in the priority and the mission that we have, it's actually not all that important. Then there's a quadrant that's not urgent and not important. So we can spend our time and fill our days and our times and our minutes with all of these tasks and these things that we're doing that aren't urgent. There's nothing that's urgent about it, and it actually isn't even all that important. So it's just busy work that we can fill our time with. Oftentimes people can fall into that trap of just staying in that part of the quadrant because we feel good about just checking off boxes, but yet the tasks and the things that we're giving our attention, that we're investing our time in, are not urgent and they're not important. And then there's another box in the quadrant that is not urgent but important. Not urgent but important. This podcast may fall into that category for you. It's not urgent for you today. There's nothing that's life altering right now that you have to listen to this podcast today. It's not urgent. There are other things that might be more urgent for you right in front of your face today. It might not be urgent, but it's important. And so oftentimes there are things that and this is a quadrant that we can overlook, because these things that keep us busy and seem more urgent, then we can just check them off. But the reality is there are also tasks, there are things in teams and organizational settings, there's things like carving out time to do visioning and strategic planning and connecting as a team. It may not be urgent exactly in that moment, but oftentimes there's nothing more important that we can do than invest our time in each other, invest our time in the clarity of that mission, invest our time in that clarity of the vision of where we're trying to go, and invest our time in developing that plan for where we're going to go in the future. It may not be urgent, but it's absolutely important. And then, of course, the last quadrant is the one where we want to make sure that we're getting to, that we're investing the most of our time in the space of the things that are urgent, are right in front of our face, and absolutely are important. They are aligned with our mission. They are aligned with our highest priorities. They are aligned with the culture we're trying to create, and they are urgent. They're in front of us, but they're also important. And as you've heard me say many times before, where we look is where we go. Where we look is where we go. You've heard me tell that story about learning to surf for the first time. And as you learn how to surf, one of the things they teach you is that where you look is where you go. What you give your eyes to, your body will follow. And if where you give your eyes to is on all the waves that are crashing around you, all the things that are around you that are trying to steal your attention, distract you, your own doubts, your own fears, everything that's swirling around you that's out of your control, if that's what you give your focus and your attention to, if you stare down in the water wondering whether Jaws is going to come up and get you, where you look is where you go. Where you look, your body will follow. But the minute you actually start surfing for real, it's because you start to have the eye discipline and training yourself even before you get out into the water. Start training yourself that as soon as you pop up on that surfboard, to shift and fix your eyes right on the shoreline. Because where we look is where we go. Where we look, our bodies will follow. And anybody who's surfed, and I can say that this is absolutely true. I'm not a surfer, but I have surfed, and I can tell you that the few magical rides that I've had in my life, I had one magical ride a year ago in Mexico where I was trying to learn to surf. One magical ride, and it was absolutely because finally I had the eye discipline to focus in, and to where I look is where I go. And all of a sudden, everything fell in alignment, and I had this kind of magical ride, other than the times where I spent the rest of the day leading up to that just getting, like a laundry machine. I got tumbled and beat up all day long because I didn't have the discipline to put my eyes. But where we look is where we go. What we invest our focus, our time, our energy, and our heart into is where we end up going. So if we individually or entire teams or groups of people invest our time and spend our time obsessed with negativity, with gossip, with blame, where we look is where we go. We will continue to find it, and we'll continue to create more of it. But if we invest in the people, if we invest in a mission that's greater than us, if we invest our time in seeking solutions together, and we invest our mind and our heart and our focus and our time in those around us, and instead of complaining and bitching and who's to blame, but where do we appreciate, what are we grateful for, what are the solutions, and what are the next actions we're going to do to get back on track? If that's where we invest our time, then where we look is where we go. We'll find more of it, and that's where our bodies will follow. The most effective and compelling humans on the planet, leaders, teams, entire companies and organizations, they invest their days, their weeks, their months, their years, and their lives in the important elements that they want to invest in for their future. So are you just managing your time? Are you just filling your time? Or are you investing your time? Because where we look is where we go. So as always with this podcast, I want to leave you with some questions, some things to ponder, some reflection for your day or your week. I want you to think about and take an inventory of your average days. Step back and look at your schedule. Look at the way that you are spending, filling, or investing your time. What are you spending your time on? What are you filling your time with? And what are you investing your time in? Take an inventory of your average days. Where are you spending and investing your time? What more important and urgent elements need more of your investment? What are the important and urgent elements that need more of your investment, of your focus, of your mind, and of your heart? What are they? What are those important and urgent things that need the investment of your time, your focus, your mind, your heart? And what are those less important, non-urgent elements that you seem to see that are wasting too much of your investment, too much of your focus, too much of your mind, your heart? You're being distracted What are those less important and non-urgent elements that waste too much of your investment? Remember, we can either manage time or invest time, and where we look is where we go.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using. And share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to your organization, or you have a question or comment about this podcast, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we all are ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.